The micro, small and medium enterprises is a critical component in Kenya's socio-economic development. This industry employs close to 80% of the country's workforce, generating between 20 to 25% to the country's GDP annually. But this sector has been beset by many challenges. And joining us this week on Inside Government, we are talking to the Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Cooperative and Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development. This is Simon Chelugui. He's going to give us an update on what the ministry is doing to help the sector grow and evolve. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this afternoon. We just basically want to, first of all, can you give us an update or a hint of how the sector is performing now?
Thank you, Brian, Kimani, and the KBC team for this very important interview to update Kenyans on the status and progress government is making on this very critical sector, the micro, small, and medium enterprises. Just to give you a background, as you've said, we have over 19 million Kenyans in employment, or rather in employable age, but only 3 million are formally employed. The rest of the 16 million Kenyans are informally employed, largely by MSMEs. So this sector has many challenges. One, access to affordable credit is an issue, and also aggregation of their markets is a big issue. And so because of the contribution to the economy and also the impact of this sector when it is really organized on the population makes the sector very important and very critical to government. And therefore, when President William Ruto was forming his government, which is focused on bottom-up economic transformation agenda, he identified MSME as a key pillar, among other pillars like health, digital penetration, and also matters of supporting health, digital superhighway and penetration in Kenya, and even MSMEs and agriculture. So this mandate on MSME, first, we are laying the foundation. In the last 1 year, we focused on first establishing where we are as a country as far as MSME is concerned. We've been able to draw references from other countries which have developed, like Japan, South Korea, America. Even America to date still have a focus. They have a unit called SBA, Small Business Administration. Yeah. And part of our discussion on STEEP, which is ongoing, is to match SBA and MSMEs of Kenya so that we learn from each other, we transfer knowledge, experiences, and even be able to support each other. They are already advanced, and we are beginning our journey. So as far as the status of MSMEs is concerned, or what the government is doing, number one, we have mobilized affordable credit to support the MSME as one way of promoting the MSME. To date, we have a program called KJET, Kenya Jobs and Opportunity, Employment Opportunities with the World Bank. This is a $40 million US. We have also Nyota, which again is a program by the World Bank with a budget of over $20 million. Then we also have SAFER, which is geared towards financial inclusion and financial penetration. Then we also mobilized the KFW through GISET, giving us approximately 3.7 billion shillings. All these funds are now going to be organized through the institutions that we have, and also partnering with certain financial institutions to give the MSMEs access, or rather to avail funds at affordable price for use by MSMEs. Alongside those funds is rigorous vigorous training. We need to teach our MSMEs. Remember, they have no bank accounts. They don't have they have no books of accounts. They don't have formal records. They operate under the radar of many agencies. They are not registered. They are never licensed. And therefore, there is need for training. If someone was to formally progress and graduate to a medium and even small enterprise and large and later on become multinational, then you need to ensure that you begin with some basics. Like if you're going to buy materials from a wholesaler and you're going to retail and sell, what was your cost? What was your input cost? What was your transport cost? What are your storage cost and your selling price? And when you maintain those records, it becomes very easy for any financial institution to extend credit, now formal credit. That is the role and purpose of government, to facilitate, to incubate and accelerate. So we have institutions within the Ministry of MSME that as per the mandate given to us, we were given Kenya Industry Estates. And Kenya Industry Estates is a very old organization, and they have been doing incubation, acceleration, and graduations of MSME. We pride ourselves. Aqua Industries began in Kenya Industry Estate sheds. Yeah. We have Mastermind Tobacco, which was which grew and became a very big organization. Nice and Lovely, that was later sold to a French conglomerate, was also a product of Kenya Industry Estates. We have since then seen many other industries. So it is possible that we can incubate in our sheds small ideas, support them, mentor them, accelerate them, and eventually they graduate and move on. So that is where we are. We are now preparing to carry out a survey of the MSMEs in the country to understand the areas or their sectors of operation. There are many MSMEs in the food industry, those in grocery and distribution, those in transport. There are SMEs in hospitality industry. There are SMEs also in logistics. So all these SMEs are now being grouped. So we are coming up with a new bill, the starter bill, which is now before the House. We have engaged with the House leadership so that we take over that bill. And that the idea behind that bill is those Kenyans with good ideas and they are lacking support or financial support. Because in this startup bill, we will have angel funds, we have patient funds, and we have even philanthropic support, people who are ready to support a good idea.
What are we doing to help Kenya Industrial Estates become the force of incubating SMEs in this country?
One issue that has faced KIE for the last, I think, 10 years is lack of continued financial support. Incubation can only be done by through public funds. Many private funds or corporate funds are more risk averse. They would rather pick something that has been tested and proven. So earlier, and their founding objective of KIE was to actually identify good ideas, incubate them, accelerate them, and move on. Now as a government, in this administration, given that our renewed focus on SMEs and startups, we are actually putting more money in KIE. As I've told you, through GIZ, we are putting now 3.7 billion. And that will, in our target, we believe we'll be able to reach out to over 100,000 young people in training and over 20,000 in terms of businesses. This fund, we are also working on a matching up so that we touch more. So the missing link in the last about 10 years was the focus on this very important sector. So I believe there are farms that have been incubated but are not based in the sheds, in the KIE sheds. Some have been doing food value addition. They've been doing milling, bakeries, and all this. Some have graduated to big millers. And we are yet to see the big ones like the ones I've mentioned. But I want to assure you and assure Kenyans that given the new focus, I'm now asking Kenyans to engage our 35 Kenya industrial estates, which are distributed across the country, with new ideas, with new proposals for consideration. And I want to believe that will, in another 2-3 years, we should be able to see the next aqua industry, the next mastermind, and the rest.
Very well. You know, when you look at the last 5 years, you know, the SMEs industry, you know, has undergone major setbacks. You know, we started with the COVID-19 in 2020. Then another economic shock came through in the form of drought, which was devastating. Then this year, I mean, the industry has been faced by serious, the country has been faced by serious floodings that has affected SMEs. Have we rolled out programs, you know, to help SMEs that have been affected by the 3 shocks, you know, get back on their feet?
But the one that really hit the SMEs below the belt was the COVID-19. I was then Minister for Labor and Social Protection. And I remember sourcing for funds from European Union to support small enterprises in Nairobi and other towns, which we had lockdowns in those areas, and they could not be able to sell their produce or their wares. They were not able to move from one corner to the other, and so many were affected. So as government, you know, these are forces of acts of God. And sometimes no insurer and no other, you can't plan it. You cannot project that this will happen. However, as government, with the new census that we are carrying on now, and the new funding arrangements we are putting in place, first, we want to begin almost afresh, because we did not have prior information before these acts of God. We didn't know the enterprises were located where and they were doing what. I know in other countries, in other jurisdictions, they were compensated because there is a register. There is an organized way of knowing how many MSMEs are there. For us, in our case, we did not know. So we are embarking on a new chapter to survey and register the MSMEs. We have even further going to establish the Office of Registrar of MSMEs under MSEA. This office will be able to collate and also tabulate or register then across the country all the MSMEs. Once we register, it becomes easy. You saw it during COVID. The U.S. government was giving money, stipends to organizations to sustain their workers and even to sustain the operations of the company. It's not possible in Kenya. We cannot even do insurance covers in terms of maybe in case of fire. You saw fires here in Ngong Road. We have seen fires in Kikomba. Most of those businesses that caught fire were MSMEs. But our intervention is limited because we do not have a register of who was there, who has been there. So to begin all this, we must establish a register, a starting point. So going forward, once we have this, once we enumerate, and I'm just asking Kenyans to make sure that when these enumerators come forth, please volunteer, please respond, because it is the only way government can be able to know you and be able to support you at any time there is a problem or when government wants to extend some support. Look at the cooperative sector. We know them. We have a full register. Now government is saying for the sugar farmers, we are waiving their debts, and we know who they are. We specifically know how they borrow the money, who borrowed the money, what they used it for. We are now on coffee. We're looking at the coffee sector. We know the impact and importance of the sector in the country. How many families, and even given that it is a source of foreign exchange and also employment in the country. So with that, with all that those attributes, we consider this sector needs to be given the attention. So we are able to intervene. In the MSME sector, we have to also go back to the factory settings. We have to go back to the basics and begin with registration. So when that happens, we'll be able to know which MSMEs are in which sector. If you are in hospitality, given the COVID, we had COVID and the effect of COVID in 2021, many restaurants were closed, and the government was willing to intervene. We ended up supporting the five-star hotels, who are not really a big problem. I remember government allocated they gave an allocation of 3 billion, and later on there was also another 3 billion to support their hospitality industry, given that our airports were closed, our airspace was closed, and there were no more tourists coming here. So government responded by supporting those big enterprises. But we did not know the real people who suffered that day were the MSMEs, the small restaurants, eateries, and the rest. So please, to our SMEs in Kenya, once this enumeration starts, I want to ask you to really respond positively, because through that we can be able to craft any financial support, any training, and even in future, given the numbers and the size, it's not practical for government to engage people on individual, train everybody, the 19 million, the 16 million. So we might again, through that, offer online training, capacity building, and even any support that we want to extend to these people.
When COVID was ravaging businesses, I mean, the government came up with an idea to create the Kenya Credit Guarantee Scheme. And this was aimed at helping small SMEs or insulating them from losses once they get into debt. What are you doing to ensure that the Kenya Credit Guarantee Scheme plays the role that it was supposed to play?
We intend to lower the risk of lenders when they extend credit to MSMEs. So if an MSME comes today to a bank, then there is already a cover for this depositor's money. So if the bank is taking a risk, we are able to cover that bank up to certain percentage. Then the bank will be able now to lower the risk assessment. Number 3, we are also going to amend the central bank rules as far as MSME lending is concerned. When you engage banks, they will tell you that this is against the prudential guidelines by central bank. So for MSMEs, we will have a lower, given that now we are putting in seed capital as government. In fact, there are many other institutions other than the National Treasury putting in money. There are other institutions like the European Union, like the World Bank. I've always asked for this kind of arrangement so that they can support institutions. We also have private funds. Safaricom themselves are able to mobilize private funds. They have engaged, they have sat with me here, and they're saying we can raise these private funds to support MSMEs. So in a way, we are working on the regulatory, we are working on the enactment of the Kenya Credit Guarantee Scheme Company, and will open doors and opportunities for other lenders. Maybe this way, we will now open access to MSMEs.
There has been proposals that why can't the Kenya Credit Guarantee Scheme be domiciled at MSEA?
The Kenya Credit Guarantee Scheme is like an insurance. And it's an insurance to lenders to extend credit to MSMEs. Mm-hmm. MSEA develops and oversights the sector. It also lobbies, it registers them, it develops them, it sources for, trains them, it sources for funds from institutions. So once we have a guarantee to financial institutions, MSEA will be able to train and lead and guide and direct them to various institutions, develop a partnership. So I believe there would be an overlap or conflict of roles when they do that. And we want to allow this unit to really stand out so that banks can now be able to engage them on terms and rates and risk assessment.
There has also been the long-standing issue of creating a fund for MSME, the MSME fund. Do we have an update on when this is likely to be actualized?
We gave the Kenya Credit Guarantee a priority and the startup bill. We believe that with these two first, I know we still have a MSME fund on the way, on the pipeline. But if these two are addressed and operationalized, I want to believe that we will have sorted the needs of a SME fund by almost 70%. Because that fund, there's unlimited demand for SME funds. And we cannot sort it out as government. But if we facilitate and open opportunities across the financial spectrum by issuance of guarantees, development of startup fund or startup enterprise organizations, then we can be able to mobilize indirectly enough resources to support the MSME sector.
And talking about startups, when you look at the Kenyan startups landscape in the last 2 years, I mean, we have seen about 8 startups closing their business. And the 9th one, which is one of the largest in the agro industry, has been facing a lot of challenges.
Foods.
Yes. How would this bill address this issue of startups, starting on a big way and, 2, 3, 4 years, 5 down the line, they close shop?
Most startups that came to Kenya started like multinational companies. They did not look and address the basics. There is so much information and knowledge to gain when you go through the rigors of ups and downs. You must understand your market. You must introduce your product, promote your product, get accepted, and now begin to push it to commercial levels. And so my interpretation of those organizations, the challenges they are going through or they have gone through, one, they did not subject their products and ideas to an incubation. Incubation is a natural stage. Incubation means you test the idea, you test the products, you test the market, you even inculcate the culture among the staff. The next thing is going to acceleration. You cannot accelerate when you have not even, your first product has never hit the market. You do not know the acceptability of your product. It could be digital. Most of the startups have been digital. And sometimes it requires heavy financial capital When you saw M-Pesa, it took so long for the country to accept it. I was one of those who did not believe in M-Pesa. You look at the digital, mobile banking, like PesaPap and KCB Mtaani and the rest. Those ideas are good, but it took time for people to accept and appreciate these ideas. So let's not jump stages. I would encourage, we have Kenya Industrial Estates. Anybody who has a good idea, please come down. We will go through the idea. We'll give you a corner, a space. We'll give you experts. We have all of them from Germany, from Japan. They will give you ideas of how this thing has worked. You could be in our sheds or you could be in your own location. And
so you don't need to reinvent the wheel.
You don't have to invent the wheel. And you cannot go full scale before going through the primaries. You must go through the primaries. Primaries means you have a product there, and you have a market there. You have assessed the market size, and then you can now produce. But you cannot go to full production and distribution, because acceptance, the product acceptance, needs to go through some stages.
Almost 2 years since the Hustler Fund was launched. What lessons have we learned in this process?
One, we have been able to onboard Kenyans into this government program. Two, we have also been able to know that there are no limitation to the type of phones we have. We can still deliver service with any type of gadget of phones. 52% of our users are using Mulika Mwizi.
Feature phones.
Feature phones. And the smartphones are about 48%. The next thing is the Kenyans are yearning for affordable, accessible credit. Because if you look at the rate, at one time, we were doing 233,000 transactions per second across
233,000?
Yes. At the peak, when we were onboarding, we were doing 233,000 transactions per second. So one lesson is they are yearning for affordable and accessible. We have facilitated them to transact at the comfort of where they are. They don't have to go to a bank. They don't have to come out. The fourth lesson is we have also inculcated the need for savings, the culture of savings, because we crossed over 1 year last December, and we have taken out 5% of their loans and put it in a long-term savings, 30% of that short-term, which is available within 1 year, and the other balance is available. The 70% of their savings is available at their retirement age, from age 70, so that we build a pension, we build a retirement savings for these hustlers. Now, when the 1 year period came, we saw withdrawals being transferred to all long-term savings, meaning on their own volition, they are now understand they have an opportunity to save. And the fifth lesson is financial literacy, financial knowledge. We now have an opportunity to push now financial discipline, to teach them to know and appreciate that when you borrow money, you must pay back. When you borrow money, whether it's government funds or private funds, you must pay. So integrity, financial integrity, is something that now we are inculcating. If and when we deliver, once we have this program succeeding, even if all factors being constant, 5 million people graduate. I now have about 2.1 million people who have demonstrated financial integrity and discipline. But as we push along, we could get to 5 million. 5 million people graduating to the financial system with a hustler financial statement is a big boost in this country, because you can take a risk with a credit guarantee and the startup. We can take a risk on these 5 million people. These are people who started with 500 shillings. They have graduated all the way to 50,000. We have cases of hustlers who have borrowed 1,400 times. His objective is to save. He runs a border. Every time he carries a customer, they are paid in through M-Pesa. And then they borrow money from Hustler Fund to fuel their borders. And once they are paid, they pay back. Then they borrow again. So in a day, that person borrows between 5 and 10 times. And in every borrowing, he's making a saving. Today, that fellow has saved over 284,000. Now, if you are to work, and even you from, even myself, my NSSF saving to date, even having served as a minister, I have not reached that level. One, because of the rate we were paying, and I know we have enhanced now, but this fellow in 1 year has done 284,000. In another, given that given the way he's saving, in another 2 years, 3 years, he'll be hitting 1 million. And if he continuously works like that, the guy is about 34 years. So if assuming he does another 10 years, he has almost, he's able to, he has made enough savings to sustain his retirement.
Well, Bwana Waziri, thank you very much indeed for joining us and, of course, for sharing with us those insights. Your time is highly appreciated.
Thank you so much. Maybe just to close by saying that the future of our country is riding on development and promotion of the hustlers, the MSMEs, across the country. And as we've said, kasi ni kazi. We respect every hustle. We respect every job that Kenyans are engaged in. What our role is to promote and support. And my really closing remark is to urge Kenyans to be disciplined and to be people of integrity, however small they borrow, however small the loans are, because it speaks volume. If you can be able to borrow 500 shillings and pay back without being pushed, you can also borrow 1 million shillings and pay back. It's the same model, it is the same discipline, it is the same behavior. So my dream is to see at least 5 million Kenyans graduate from MSMEs to medium and maybe bigger organizations by inculcating these attributes.
Asante sana.
Asante.
I mean, we've been talking to the Cabinet Secretary for Cooperatives and MSME Development, Simon Chelugui. He's been giving us an update on the status of MSMEs in Kenya and what the government is doing to capacitate this critical industry. You have been watching Inside Government. My name is O'Brien Kimani. Thank you very much indeed for your time. We do this again next week. Until then, have a good time.